Discover the incredible life-changing power of 36 hours fasting, an unexpected journey revealed. In the little town of Maplewood, where everyone knew everyone else's business, Sarah felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. At just 34 years old, her life transformed overnight after her husband, a local war veteran, passed away. The hole his absence left was like a gaping wound, raw and aching. As a single mother to Mia and Jake, Sarah juggled shifts at the diner and grocery store, working tirelessly day in and day out just to keep the lights on and food on the table. But despite the constant hustle, a fog of uncertainty loomed over her, casting shadows on her once bright spirit. One afternoon, while dropping off Mia at the community center, Sarah's eyes caught a flyer fluttering in the breeze. Discover the incredible life-changing power of 36 hours fasting, it read in bold letters. Just seeing those words ignited a flicker of hope in her heart. Could this be the reset her life desperately needed? She imagined a time when she wouldn't feel like a ghost haunting the hallways of her own home, burdened by grief and judgment from neighbors who whispered about her plight. Yet, when she shared her interest with friends, their skepticism poured over her like cold water. Fasting? You're already struggling, Sarah. Don't add more to your plate. The words stung and planted doubt, but her yearning for clarity stirred deeper within. As she prepared to embark on the 36-hour fast, the atmosphere in Maplewood became charged. A heated town hall discussion revealed the growing economic divide. Tempers flared, voices echoed, and she could feel the prevailing animosity hanging thick in the air. Sarah stood on the sidelines, her heart pounding against her chest. It was as if the town split into two sides, those striving for self-improvement and those who saw it as a luxury reserved for the privileged. Each time someone cast a disapproving glance in her direction, Sarah could feel the world narrowing in on her, an endless cycle of judgment, guilt, and desperation. Could she break free from this judgment? Was fasting truly the key? But just as she steadied herself for the challenge ahead, a storm unleashed chaos upon Maplewood, damaging homes and displacing families. Fear rippled through the community, leading them to withdraw into their corners. Yet, Sarah's resolve only grew stronger. The strength she found in fasting filled her with purpose. This is bigger than myself, she thought, heart racing. She rallied her neighbors, asking everyone to come together, to support each other against the tempest that swirled inside and outside. Yet as long-held grudges re-emerged, she faced the reality of their deep-seated resentments. She doubted whether her voice could bridge such a divide. Just when it felt as if everything could fall apart, she felt a surge of defiance. I'm not just a widow, she whispered to herself, I'm a fighter for my family, for this community. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With her heart pounding, Sarah stood on the precipice of a life-altering moment, ready to challenge not only her limits but the limitations imposed by her community. As she prepared to end her fast, she felt a wall of doubt crashing into her spirit. Would her efforts to inspire change be enough? The night before her fast ended, she wrestled with the fear of failure and the hope for a brighter future. In that moment of silence, only one question echoed in her mind: can the power of fasting heal not just her soul, but the fractures that separated her from the respect she craved? The dawn approached, soft light creeping through the window, illuminating the mess of dishes stacked in the sink and the half-drawn curtains that fluttered slightly in the breeze. Sarah lay awake, her heart thudding loudly against the stillness of the early morning. The end of her fast loomed, bringing with it a whirlwind of emotions that felt nearly suffocating. As she slowly sat up, she could feel the electric energy coursing through her veins. It was as if each moment of fasting had peeled back layers of despair that had clung to her for so long. Today, she wasn't just breaking her fast, she was breaking free. She thought about Mia and Jake sleeping soundly down the hall, about their needs, and also about her own. This was a new chapter, and she hoped it would lead to healing for them all. With determined strides, Sarah made her way to the kitchen. The familiar scent of coffee brewing felt like a warm hug. In a way, the process felt symbolic. Just as she prepared the coffee, she was preparing to wake up to a new reality, one filled with possibilities instead of limitations. Ready for anything, she tossed together a simple breakfast. Eggs sizzling in the pan, she glanced outside, watching as the first rays of sunlight dipped below the treetops of Maplewood. It was beautiful, almost magical. Moments like this reminded her of why she loved living here. Yet, deep inside, the tensions from last night's town hall meeting still lingered. The door creaked open, and Mia emerged, rubbing her eyes in that adorable way only sleepy children can. "Mom, is it morning already?" she asked, her little voice a melody in the stillness. "Yep, it's a brand new day," Sarah smiled, serving her daughter a plate with a smile. As they ate together, she felt a warmth growing within her. Conversation flowed easily, sharing smiles and laughter, each bite bringing them back to life. Once breakfast was done, Sarah knew she needed to face the community that had shaped so much of her life. Over the past couple of weeks, anger and division stirred through Maplewood like a tempest, tearing at the fabric of unity that once bound them. Today, she would stand up and confront that. Arriving at the communal park, she could see the scattered faces, some familiar, some not. A mixture of apprehension and excitement coursed through her. She was just one person, but she had to lift her voice above the clamoring silence. As she walked toward the gathering crowd, she caught whispers floating through the air. Her heart raced, doubt flickered through her mind. What if they didn't listen? What if they turned away, just like so many before? But then she recalled the power of fasting, the clarity it had granted her, the moments of vulnerability that led her to realize that change started with the willingness to show up. As she took a deep breath, she spotted several of her neighbors shifting uncomfortably, their eyes hinting at silent strife. "Today is not just about me," she began as she raised her voice above the murmurs. The crowd quieted, attention shifting toward her. "It's about every one of us coming together. We are all fighting battles invisible to each other. But just like I found strength in fasting, we can find strength in uniting." The energy in the air shifted slightly, a glimmer of hope sparking amidst the skepticism. Yet, as words rolled off her tongue, she couldn't shake the feeling of uncertainty. Was she truly ready for this? Could she really bridge the divide that had deepened among the people she had grown up with? The moment felt heavier than ever as atmospheres shifted, suggesting confrontation or transformation. Could the walls that held them apart truly be dismantled? The answer hung in the air, waiting for her next words, igniting even more questions. Sarah paused, her heartbeat echoing in her ears as she scanned the crowd. Filled with familiar faces, they seemed like strangers now, eyes clouded with skepticism and hurt. She felt their doubt like a weight pressing down on her. They stood divided by misunderstandings, grudges, and the scars of the recent past. She cleared her throat, gathering courage as she forged ahead. "Together, we can heal," she said, her voice steadying. "I know how hard it's been for each of us. We've seen divisions grow. But just like my fast helped me strip away layers of negativity, we can strip away the barriers between us." A few heads nodded, but she could sense the apprehension lingering like the morning fog. They wanted to believe, but could they? "I felt anger. I felt lost," she continued, her eyes scanning the crowd. "I know how it feels to struggle alone. It's time to break the silence, to speak up for each other, rather than against each other." There was a ripple, a murmur spreading through the gathering. Sarah caught sight of Helen, an older woman from down the street. Helen had a reputation for being tough, her sharp words cutting through the air when tensions flared. But today, there was a softness in her eyes, a willingness to listen. "Why should we trust?" a voice called out from the back. It belonged to Mark, the town's once beloved mayor, who had become a polarizing figure. Anger simmered beneath the surface of his questions, and the crowd fell silent again. "Because we are neighbors. We are family," Sarah replied, her passion igniting a fire within her. "And family stands together. We've all faced storms. It's time to let that pain become a bridge, not a wall." For a moment, she thought she saw apprehension soften into curiosity. Then Mia tugged gently at her skirt, lifting her tiny voice in a way only children can. "You can make it work, can't you, Mommy?" The innocence of her daughter's belief struck an emotional chord in Sarah. She smiled, but it was mixed with tears threatening to spill. "Yes, Mia, we can. We just need to want it enough." The warmth of that connection wrapped around Sarah, and she could see it ripple back through the crowd. More nods, shared expressions. She could almost feel the energy shifting as she spoke, like sunlight breaking through thick clouds. "Let us start right here, right now," she urged. "If anyone here has a story, something that's weighing on you, let us share. Only when we're vulnerable can we begin to truly understand one another." Another tense moment passed, but then Helen took a deep breath, stepping forward. "I lost my son last year," she began, her voice trembling. "And instead of sharing that pain, I pushed everyone away. But I see now, I see it hurt the whole community." The moment felt electric. As Helen spoke, others began to follow. Stories intertwined like threads in a tapestry, weaving together pain, joy, and healing. The silence started to bloom into conversations, voices rising with hope rather than anger, but just as the air filled with the warmth of connection, Sarah noticed Mark shifting uneasily at the edge of the crowd. He had his arms crossed, hostility still hanging around him like a cloak. Would he break the moment? Or would they lose their newfound hope? The crowd held its breath, eyes flickering between Sarah and Mark, waiting for what would come next. Could this fragile moment of unity withstand the weight of lingering resentment? The answer hung between them, eager for a resolution yet full of uncertainty. Mark uncrossed his arms, and for a heartbeat, it seemed the world held its breath. The challenges of the past year reflected in his tense jawline and furrowed brow. Had he really just come here to confront Sarah, or was there a flicker of curiosity hidden behind the walls he rebuilt? "Do you think sharing our pain will magically fix things?" He stepped forward, his tone a mix of skepticism and a desperation for answers. "My decisions, the things I did in office, they split this town apart. A simple exchange of stories can't erase that." Sarah could feel the energy shift. Tension crackled in the air, but she refused to look away. "No, it won't fix everything," she replied gently, but firmly. "But it can open a door, maybe just a little. We have to start somewhere, don't we? A first step toward understanding, toward healing." Mark hesitated, his gaze darting toward Helen, who now stood with a steady resolve. "And what if we step into a trap? What if this just opens old wounds?" "Then we acknowledge those wounds together," Sarah offered, her voice filled with a mixture of hope and defiance. "Each one of us carries scars. Ignoring them only makes the pain fester. But facing them together, we can begin to heal them together." The crowd started to murmur again, this time with a collective breath of anticipation. Sarah's heart swelled with a sense of purpose. She saw people leaning in, open to what lay ahead. "Mia," she called to her daughter softly, "why don't you share something?" The little girl hesitated, her tiny hand gripping Sarah's skirt tighter, but she stepped forward, emboldened by the warmth of their connection. "I like when we play together," she began, her innocent voice breaking through the heaviness. "And when I see everyone smiling, it makes me happy. I don't like when people shout. Can't we just play again?" Laughter erupted, a soft, healing sound that momentarily broke the tension. Mia's words hung in the air, light as a feather. Sarah couldn't help but smile. The crowd began to shift, a wave of vulnerability washing over them. Mark's expression softened. "Maybe it starts small," he admitted, his voice low. "Maybe we can all find a way back to the playground." Another murmur of agreement followed, emboldened whispers catching fire. People were thinking aloud now, sharing memories of simpler times, moments when laughter came easily, unhindered by grudges. As the stories spilled forth, a tapestry began to form, a vivid picture of a shared past. But the crowd's warmth wasn't enough to fully thaw Mark's icy exterior. He took a deep breath, glancing at Sarah. "If we're going to do this, then I need to come clean first. I've carried a weight I thought I could shoulder alone." Sarah knew instinctively this was a pivotal moment. Then share it. Let us share that burden with you, she said, her voice steady. Mark's eyes met hers, a flicker of something vulnerable passed between them. The crowd leaned in closer, waiting. The air was charged, thick with the promise of revelation and the hope of healing. All right, I will, he said slowly. But you might want to brace yourselves for the truth. Silence fell again, a thick blanket stretching over the gathering as the crowd prepared for whatever lay ahead. What secret was Mark hiding? Would it bring them closer together, or send them spiraling back into division? Mark swallowed hard, the lump in his throat a painful reminder of the weight he bore. He glanced at Mia, who was still clutching Sarah's skirt, her innocent eyes expecting something magical to unfold. It struck him then this was about more than just his story. It was about every single person standing before him. The weight of that realization sent a shiver down his spine. All right, he began, his voice steady but low. The truth is I made choices that hurt people. I believed I was doing what was best for the town, but I lost sight of the people behind those decisions. A collective breath was drawn, a silent gasp that echoed through the crowd. Curiosity mixed with apprehension hung in the air, each person leaning forward just a bit more. My father, he always pushed me to be the best. I grew up believing that success meant sacrificing everything else. It was about power, influence. I didn't care who got hurt in the process. He paused, his eyes darting toward Helen, who raised her chin defiantly. But you all showed me something I didn't understand. Success isn't measured by power but by community, by connection. I failed you all, and that's the hardest truth I have to face. The crowd shifted, emotions shifting like the wind through the trees. Sarah felt a rush of air as people began whispering to one another, some nodding in understanding. Others looked skeptical. This was an opening, and it was both scary and exhilarating. Mia's right, Helen finally spoke up, her voice strong. Once, we were a community built on laughter and trust. We've all been carrying our own burdens. Perhaps sharing our stories can lighten that load, even if just a little. Mark's eyes met hers, surprise and gratitude washing over him. That's what I'm hoping for. I need you all to know that I didn't understand your pain. And I can't undo what's been done, but I want to be part of the healing. I don't want to lead you anymore. I want to walk with you. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. There was a flicker of hope glimmering as conversations ignited around them like sparks from firewood. Sarah felt the tension lift ever so slightly. Everyone has a story, she said, emboldened by the emerging connection. It's time we share more than just our grievances. Let us share our hopes too, our dreams for this town. One voice called out from the middle of the crowd, what about the park? It used to be our place. We can start there. Yes. Another voice chimed in, and soon a chorus followed. Ideas began to flow, suggestions for community events, cleanup days, and simply gathering together in the spirit of renewal. Mark felt a swell of hope, an unexpected lightness filling him. Maybe, just maybe, this was their moment. A new beginning, but then, just as the energy began to surge, a voice cut through the buzz. What if these stories bring up things best left unsaid? Someone shouted. The crowd quieted, the veil of hope lifting for a moment as fear stepped back and Mark's heart raced. They had made progress, yet uncertainties remained, lurking in the shadows of every smile. I believe we're stronger together. But we need to be honest about ourselves. The journey ahead won't be easy, he admitted, unabashed. Then let us take this journey together, Helen said, her voice fierce and unwavering. And if we stumble, we'll pick each other up. The crowd erupted again, but as the cheering faded, Mark felt the weight return. They had opened a door, but what lay beyond it? There was more to uncover, and as he looked around at the faces shimmering with hope, he felt a mixture of fear and excitement. Are we ready? He asked, testing the waters of this newfound connection. Their response came as a wave, a chorus of affirmations, laughter, and the sound of community awakening. But deep down, Mark knew they were still standing on a precipice. One wrong step could send them tumbling back into the darkness. What would it take to keep that from happening? As the crowd settled, the shadows loomed large, waiting to see if they truly could walk toward the light together. Mark stood at the forefront of a collective sigh, feeling the energy of the crowd pulse with both hope and uncertainty. They were all eager to heal, yet the weight of unspoken fears lingered. Could they really confront the past and emerge stronger? Mia's small hand tightened on Sarah's skirt as if sensing the tension. Sarah knelt beside her, brushing a stray lock of hair behind Mia's ear. "We'll find a way, won't we?" she whispered, trying to soothe both herself and the child. Mia smiled softly, nodded, and the movement settled into Sarah's heart like a reassuring weight. Helen stepped forward, her fiery spirit undeterred by the slight chill in the air. "Let us cast our worries aside, even if just for now. We've spent so long focusing on what divides us. Let us shift gears." She paused, scanning the crowd, her gaze settling on familiar faces lined with hesitance and open-heartedness. "Let us talk about the memories we cherished. The laughter we shared. I remember picnics at the park with families sprawled on blankets, kids running wild, flowers blooming bright. Simple joys that tied us together." Her voice grew passionate, and as she spoke, the crowd began to nod. Some murmured in agreement. Mark felt a flicker of warmth ignite within him. Those memories sprang forth, vibrant and full of life, knocking against the heaviness that had replaced them. "I remember those days," he said, stepping closer to Helen. "Music filling the air, people dancing, sharing stories. They seemed so far away, but they're still part of who we are." The atmosphere shifted. Faces brightened, hope danced in the corners of eyes once clouded. It wasn't simply about confronting the past, it was about celebrating it too. As conversations sparked, laughter permeated the air, echoing with the beauty of shared community. Ideas flowed like currents in a river. The park was to be revitalized, a festival to be organized for the upcoming season, and collaborative art projects blossomed in the imagination of the young. A local band even stepped up, eager to play at the revival festival, promising music that reminded them all of their beginnings. But just as Mark felt himself fully surrender to this moment, another voice darted through the laughter, the voice of a woman he hadn't seen in years, Ruth, fragile yet determined. "What about the losses? The faces we've lost along the way? Can we truly celebrate while shadows linger?" An uncomfortable hush fell over the crowd. Ruth's words struck like thunder. There was no escaping the weight of grief however far they journeyed. Tension twisted in Mark's gut, but he felt Helen's hand on his shoulder, anchoring him. "Ruth's right," he said carefully, choosing his words with care. "Honoring those we've lost is essential to moving forward. They're part of our community, woven into its very fabric." A quiet realization settled over the crowd. This journey was not solely about renewal, but also about recognition, a blend of joy and sorrow, much like life itself. Mark scanned the crowd, nods of understanding, tears glimmering in some eyes showed that they all felt it too. Healing would take time. It would require walking together into both light and shadow intertwined. "Let us remember them in the festival," Helen suggested, her voice now steady and clear. "We can celebrate their legacies while making new memories." Mark's heart swelled. This idea resonated deeply within him. As enthusiasm began to spark again, conversations reignited for planning, community board meetings formed in the air, and newfound camaraderie surfaced. Yet within Mark, fear still fluttered like a moth trapped against glass. Could they truly navigate this intricate weave of past pain and present joy? The evening sky deepened to a dusky blue, a canvas of change, and Mark felt every ounce of it sizzling in the air. "What do you think this festival could bring?" he asked the crowd gently, his words woven with an authenticity he never thought he'd find. And as the murmurs began, a question lingered within him: how would they prepare for the inevitable emotion that would surface when they reflected on both their victories and losses? As their conversation flourished, Mark remained acutely aware of the shadows still lurking, waiting for their moment. Would they be ready to face whatever was to come next? The night air danced with a mix of excitement and apprehension as the crowd began to break into smaller circles. Laughter bubbled up, punctuated by shouts of agreement and snippets of conversation. Mark's heart raced, a melody of hope and trepidation playing in rhythm with the vibrant atmosphere. Around him, people gathered, their expressions shifting from uncertainty to genuine anticipation. Ideas flowed, each one building on the last. Someone suggested a mural colors splashed against the forgotten park walls, immortalizing the stories of both the joyful and the lost. Mark imagined the vibrant scene, a testament to resilience painted in bold hues, a reminder that beauty could rise from ashes. Mia tugged at Sarah's sleeve, her eyes twinkling with curiosity. "Will there be balloons?" she asked, her voice a sweet echo of innocence. Sarah grinned, her worries melting like frost under the sun. "Of course. Balloons and music, and maybe ice cream too." As laughter rang out again, Mark couldn't help but be swept away by the infectious energy. They were all leaning into something vital, something that felt bigger than themselves. But just beneath the surface, that flutter of fear still lingered in Mark's chest. How would they hold together when the weight of grief came crashing in? Helen caught Mark's eye across the swirling conversations, and he walked toward her. "They're excited." "It feels good," he said, the warmth resonating through him like a gentle pulse. "It does," she agreed, her eyes sparkling. "But it won't be easy, Mark. We have to confront the pain alongside the joy. They go hand in hand." Just then, Ruth approached them. "I've been thinking," she said quietly, "what if we shared stories of those we've lost during the festival? Set up a memory wall? It could help us remember while also celebrating life." Mark felt a lump form in his throat. "That's a beautiful idea, Ruth. We need a space for that. People need to feel like they're not alone in their grief. No one should feel like they're carrying that weight by themselves," Helen added, her voice firm yet compassionate. "We'll honor them. Let us make room for the happiness and the heartache." The three of them stood together, forming an unspoken pact, a commitment to honor those shadows while lighting up the path ahead. Ideas continued to reverberate around them, and as the sun dipped below the horizon, a tapestry of commitment began to weave itself in the twilight. That AS plan started to solidify. Mark noticed a group of teenagers nearby, excitedly discussing how they could create a youth committee to involve their peers in the festival. It struck him this was more than just a community event, it was a metamorphosis. They were forging new connections, cultivating understanding and compassion. That he glanced at Mia, who was now giggling with Sarah and pointing at the stars that began to twinkle above their heads. A wave of calm washed over him. For once, the future felt bright not just for himself but for everyone. Just as Mark began to inhale the moment, it hit him the shadows he felt earlier weren't just fears. They were stories waiting to be shared, stories that could unite them, not divide them. The festival could be a canvas. But how would they gather those stories while ensuring that they resonated with every heart present? With the wind whispering promises of change, Mark turned to the group. "Let us think about how we can make space for voices that need to be heard, even the ones layered with pain." A ripple of conversation danced among them, but a sudden chill in the air caught Mark's attention. An unsettling thought twisted in his gut. How prepared were they really to embrace the stories that lingered? The laughter around him felt distant, and the night darkened with unanswered questions. Would they find strength in vulnerability, or would fear send them reeling when the time came to face the past head-on? And as they continued to discuss, Mark looked into the vibrant community before him, an integral tapestry of joys and losses intertwined. He could only hope that when their moment of truth arrived, they would not falter. Could they truly navigate the shadows together? As the evening unfolded, the air became thicker with anticipation. Voices wove together like colorful threads in a tapestry, each person adding a unique perspective on how to channel their grief into something meaningful. Mark stood with Helen and Ruth, their collective energy sparking new ideas that bounced around the park like fireflies. "Maybe we could have a storytelling circle," Ruth suggested, her eyes shining with inspiration. "Like a place where people can share memories. It could be a healing exercise." Mark nodded, feeling a weight lift off his chest at the thought. "That could really help people connect," he replied. "Sometimes, just knowing someone else feels the same way can make all the difference." Nearby, Mia was showing Sarah a drawing she'd made earlier. The innocence of her smile reminded Mark how important it was to bring joy into the festival. He glanced at the graphic sketches a few kids had created on their notepads. Bright colors, silly monsters, and even whimsical flowers filled the pages. They were pure imagination unfettered by the complexities of life. Suddenly, an older gentleman approached them, his silver hair catching the last rays of sun. "I couldn't help but overhear," he said with a gentle smile, "and it got me thinking. You know, I lost my wife last year. A memory wall sounds like a splendid idea. But what if we made it interactive? People could hang their notes, pictures, and even leave messages." Mark felt a warmth spread through him. This was how it was meant to happen, an organic growth of healing and remembrance from everyone. "Absolutely," he replied. "We could set up a station where people can write down their memories throughout the festival." Helen's eyes lit up. "And maybe include a mural section where the kids can paint? It would bring so much life into the space. They might inspire others to share as well." The enthusiasm spread rapidly. People started flocking toward them, offering ideas, stories, and encouragement. Laughter intertwined with moments of solemn reflection, creating a rhythm that echoed against the park's trees. Mark stepped back for a moment, allowing himself to take it all in. The mingling of emotions, the sweet joy of creating and the bittersweet memories shared, was like a gentle storm. He closed his eyes and inhaled deeply, letting the mingled scents of blooming flowers and freshly cut grass ground him. Yet, as laughter erupted again, a shadow threatened his serenity. Rivaling the smiles were fresh tears, hidden just beneath the surface, ready to spill forth at any moment. It reminded him that not everyone would be ready to share their pain, not right away. "Maybe we should also incorporate quiet moments," he suggested, voice steady but contemplative. "Spaces where folks can sit with their thoughts, reflect. Perhaps through music or art installations that resonate with loss and healing." Ruth agreed. "And we can have volunteers available, individuals who can help guide those conversations if needed." They settled into the night, transforming the park into a living quilt. The spark of community grew each minute, yet a small part of Mark remained anxious. What if the stories became too overwhelming? Could they really sustain the balance between happiness and grief? As they began coordinating their plans, the laughter around them faded momentarily. A soft breeze rustled through the trees, replacing the sound with a whispered question. Would they find the courage to confront their pasts? Mark felt a knot forming in his stomach. What if someone isn't ready to share? How do we ensure their voices, even the painful ones, are welcomed? The crowd around him buzzed with eager discussion, but within Mark, an impending sense of uncertainty hung heavily. A flicker of doubt crept in. Was he truly ready to guide others through this? The warm summer night blinked with stars above, but Mark's heart felt thunderous, echoing thoughts of vulnerability. Their festival was a canvas, yet it felt precarious, teetering on the edge of profound change. What if, despite their best intentions, they pulled someone deeper into sorrow instead of lifting them up? With the festival's first flickering lights beginning to glow in the distance, Mark wondered if they would have to confront more than just memories. Would they pull each other from darkness, or would the shadows cluster, waiting to engulf them in sadness once more? As the stars began to twinkle above, casting an ethereal glow over the park, Mark felt a hush fall over the crowd. It was as if everyone was holding their breath, waiting for something profound to happen. The laughter might have faded, but the energy was lost no. It was simmering beneath the surface, waiting to burst forth. Mark took a moment to look around. Faces lit by strings of lights twinkled with a mixture of excitement and uncertainty. He locked eyes with Helen, who stood with her arms crossed, deep in thought. Ruth was busy jotting down more ideas, her brow furrowed in concentration. Each person reflected a piece of the puzzle, and together they formed something bigger than themselves. "All right," Mark finally said, breaking the silence. "Let us all take a moment to really consider how we want to set the tone for this festival. What do we want people to take away?" He didn't expect to feel a wave of vulnerability wash over him as he asked the question. But the very act of inviting their thoughts brought out something raw and authentic. A few seconds passed before Ruth cleared her throat. "I think it's about acknowledgement. We need to let people know it's okay to feel whatever they're feeling." "Yes," someone in the crowd echoed, her voice rising. I want us to create a safe space, a sanctuary. It's okay if someone just wants to sit back and watch. They shouldn't feel pressured to participate if they're not ready yet. Mark nodded, grateful for her words. And we should remember that every small sharing is a step forward, even if it's just a whisper. A few nods of agreement rippled through the group. Slowly, the weight in Mark's chest began to ease. It was impossible to force healing, but they could provide the environment, the nurturing soil where hope could take root, where even the smallest seeds could grow. Then, Mia, with her big eyes and a determined spirit, chimed in. Can we have a place where kids can write down their feelings? Like a worry tree where they can hang their fears, or draw them out. That way, they can let things go. Oh, I love that. Helen exclaimed, the light returning to her face. What a special way for children to express themselves. And maybe we could pair it with a story hour where they can hear about other kids who felt the same way. Excitement rippled through the crowd as more ideas sparked. Mark couldn't help but smile. As they brainstormed and collaborated, the initial hesitations ebbed under the tide of collective creativity. It felt like they were piecing together a tapestry, vibrant and heartfelt, capable of holding many stories, yet, a tightness in Mark's chest remained. They were crafting something beautiful, but it was still overshadowed by the fear of how to hold space for those who weren't ready to share. How could they ensure that everyone, especially those laden with burdens, felt included? The dusk gathered thickly around them, and Mark sensed a movement behind him. He turned to find the older gentleman from earlier, his expression soft, yet intense. I have something to share, he said slowly, his voice trembling slightly. The crowd turned toward him, drawn by his vulnerability. Noticing the shift in energy, Mark held his breath. Would this elder choose to open the floodgates of grief? Would his story radiate comfort or uncover deeper pain? In that captivating moment, the night seemed to hold still. Would the words he chose to share heal the wounds they were all mulling over? Mark's heart raced, entangled between hope and dread. Could they brave this emotional journey together? As the first words began to form on the man's lips, Mark felt courage swelling among the gathering. A spark lit in the darkness, a promise held within. The air in the park was electric as the older gentleman took a deep breath. My wife, she loved this place, he began, his voice gravelly yet kind. We come here every Saturday with our kids. I remember the laughter, the dancing, we built so many memories under these trees. Mark watched as eyes softened, some glistening with unshed tears. It's been a year since she passed, the man continued. And I lost not just my wife but a part of myself. I've felt so alone. Silence enveloped the crowd, a blanket wrapping around shared sorrow. But hearing this idea for the festival, seeing all of you come together, it gives me hope. Mark felt the air shift, the tension eased as vulnerability knitted them closer. I've felt that same loneliness, someone murmured from the back. I thought I was the only one. Murmurs of agreement followed, voices echoing the truth within them. Together, we can be a community again, Mark urged, stepping forward. A community that acknowledges our past while still finding joy in the present. We can build on our shared memories just like this man is doing. The older gentleman nodded, visibly encouraged. If we honor our lost ones while creating new memories, then maybe we can start to heal. That's what my wife would want. People began nodding, encouraged by his words. Yes. Let us make this festival a space where we can remember and celebrate all at once. Ruth chimed in, her spirit igniting new ideas. Just as laughter began to punctuate their conversations again, a gentle voice broke through. But what if someone wants to share but feels too scared? It was Mia. Mark smiled at her innocence, realizing even a child understood the weight of emotions. Then we make sure they know it's okay to take their time, he replied. Anything we do needs to recognize that everyone's journey is different. It's about supporting one another, right? A wave of agreement rippled as the crowd murmured their approval. This festival was morphing into something profound, a tapestry of grief, joy, love, and healing. I'll help with the worry tree. Mia shouted, excitement lighting up her face, her enthusiasm infectious. And let us have a story corner for kids and adults alike. someone suggested, while another called back about creating a silent reflection area. Mark watched as ideas snowballed, and the park became a living entity of creativity. He felt the air lightening. It was a beautiful, shared experience blooming before them. The fear that had coiled tightly in his chest loosened slightly. But let us not just focus on memories, Mark said, sensing the delicate balance. What about hopes for the future? What do we want for our community going forward? And just as he hoped, a connection sparked anew. Voices began intertwining, not just recollections of loss but aspirations spinning into existence. More unity. More kindness. Someone shouted, laughter echoed through the park as more and more ideas emerged. Let us have regular community meetups, potlucks, and game nights. The crowd was igniting with the fuel of connection. Suddenly, Mark spotted Helen stepping forward, her eyes fierce with determination. What if we start a community garden too? A place where we grow together, symbolizing our growth as a community. We can plant the seeds of our future right here. Excitement buzzed through the crowd, laughter floated on the summer breeze, and for the first time in a long while, Mark felt the walls of fear dimming. Let us plant those seeds. He called out, the drumbeat of change pulsing in his veins. As the sunset painted the sky a glorious orange, Mark caught Mia spinning in delight, her laughter ringing like music. Families were sharing stories, and friendships were rekindling, forging new paths among the old. That night, they would leave a legacy not just of loss, but of healing and hope, interwoven with resilience. Mark felt a sense of peace rushing into his heart, sweeping away the lingering shadows. We will build bridges, not walls, he declared, feeling the collective heartbeat of the community echoing through him. Let us create memories that honor our past and welcome our future together. As the laughter rang out in the dusk and the first stars gleamed overhead, Mark knew they had embarked on a journey that would transcend pain, uniting not only a town but weaving a family rooted in hope. In that moment, Mark witnessed the transformation. What was once fractured became fortified through shared vulnerability, and as every story echoed through Maplewood, it faded into a melody of unity. Excitement tingled in the air, filled with light and purpose, and as the night wrapped around them, Mark smiled, knowing they had finally forged a path back to one another and that they would all rise together, stronger than before. Now, before we wrap up this captivating journey, I need you to take action. You need to subscribe now to catch the next incredible stories that are waiting for you. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and let others feel this inspiration too. I want to hear from you. Comment below your feelings about this ending, share your thoughts, and don't wait not even one more second to share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation and join our community. This is the moment to show your support. Let's spread this message of hope together.